let's fast forward to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And before we had our lunch, and you had started to lose weight. Tell me what was going on for you then, how you felt, and what precipitated this, trying to get yourself back or...
Yeah. So COVID for me came at a kind of an interesting time in that there was some big events in my life sort of going on, like exclusive from COVID or anything else. But there was some stuff that was winding down. So one of the things was I was finally after a really long time, I was finally getting to the end of the dissolution of my first marriage. I'd been divorced since 2004, but then got dragged back to court in 2012, and that was something that was really kind of all-consuming for me. It was a battle. It almost felt like a fight to the death, really. And then so that sort of culminated in 2019. And then in 2019, the other thing that happened was a business that I had been running with a partner. We were shutting that business down. And the partnership just didn't work, and the business didn't work in the form that it was working, and so it was time to shut that business down. But I was transitioning a lot of my agents into a new business with a different partner. But then one of the conditions for me to move on with this new business was I don't want to be involved. I don't want anything to do with it, really, right? I'll give you what I have, and that's the contacts, what place that we can start the business. I'll give you the support by trying to get all of our agents over to this new company, but then I don't want to be involved in the day-to-day operations, and so. I took on a partner who is a phenom, and she did exactly what she was supposed to do, and blew up the business in ways that I couldn't imagine and stuff, and made it extremely successful. But really, for me, what was happening was I didn't know where I belonged. There was this transition. I was in a transition that I didn't realize was a transition, and so for most of 2019, I sort of didn't know where I fit exactly. So I was struggling with some internal strife and stuff, and I had let myself get back to probably about 275 pounds. So I kept telling myself, well, at least I'm not 345, right? So that's good.
And you're still 5'6".
But I'm still 5'6", yeah. Well, yeah, maybe I'm not even 5'6" anymore. Carrying that weight that long, I think it condenses the body a little bit. So yeah, still 5'6", and walking around at 275, not feeling very good about myself. And add to that this 7-year-long battle with my ex, and then also this business that was that was shutting down, and I was kind of lost, really. And then 2020 came, and then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, it was almost I almost felt like at first like it was a blessing, because I tell anybody who'll listen, well, I'm an introvert, and so let me get this straight. All I have to do is stay in my house, and I can't have anybody around, and I don't need to interact with people. Where do I sign, right? This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. But that only took a little while, and then I started to then I started to struggle with my mental health. I started to self-medicate with cannabis.
Were you depressed?
I was 100%. I was depressed. Absolutely.
Did you know it?
I didn't know it. I kind of thought that I was having trouble with anxiety. I was, there was a lot of things that were bothering me more at the time than I recognized. And this wasn't just the old boilerplate, coping and stuff. This was something that was a little darker and a little more dreary. It's funny, when I went back, my family doctor just retired in December, and I went and I talked to her just before she left, and we were talking about those days, and what she said to me was, while you were going through that, I sort of looked at all of all of the symptoms of PTSD, and she goes, it's pretty likely that you were suffering from some PTSD. So, but I didn't know, right? I was going through life, and life was sort of miserable for me. And so I started to self-medicate, as I said, like I started to use cannabis, and you know, if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to do it well. So then I became a grower, and then I became like, and so that sort of consumed my world for a couple of years. You know, but there was a lot of cost to that, right? Like, you know, I'm at home. I'm smoking pot in my house. I've got 3 20-year-old kids of ours that live with us. I'm setting a really poor example. I'm aware that I'm setting a poor example, but I'm not really. I don't really feel like I can do anything about it. Not to use an excuse or anything, but it's just where I found myself. And I thought, well, it's just COVID, so it's fine. And Sue, that went on for 2 years. Like it was like that for, you know, all of 2020, all of 2021. And as I got closer to the end of 2021, I started to come out of it a little bit. And I started to, you know, think, okay, there has to be more than this. And actually in I think it was 2020, in November of 2020, I got sick. I got really sick. And you know, because COVID was a thing. It wasn't COVID, but it was some sort of intestinal thing that I had. And I lost like 40 pounds within 10 days.
Wow.
And like weight just dropped off me, and I had some digestive issues. I couldn't, you know, I mean, I couldn't go to the washroom. I couldn't, there was just things going on. And, you know, there was times before that where I was thinking, like, do I really want to be here? Like, you know, I've sort of done what I wanted to do. I don't know that there's much more. You know, I'm really well insured, and you know, maybe it's better if I just check out. And then I got sick, and then I fought for my life. And so after that, 2 things happened. The first thing is that I went and I looked in the mirror, and I looked like this wasted away old man. But it was a guy who was 40 pounds lighter. And so I was in the 230s from 270s, and I thought, oh, I could work with this. This isn't that bad. I could work with this. And then the second thing that happened was I learned that I really did just want to live, right? And so then I started to ask myself, well, if I want to live, what does that life have to look like? What do you want that life to look like? And what shape does it need to take? And so the first thing is I wanted to get control of my physical self. And, you know, that was sort of at the end of 2020. So there was still a lot of work to do into 2021 and towards the end of 2021. But I think that was the tipping point for me. That's when I decided, A, I wanted to live, and B, that I wanted to live and have a quality of life, which didn't include me worrying about my weight constantly, where it was this bag that I carried around with me. Like, you know, there's a commercial that says, you know, when you lose the weight that you're carrying, then you can lose the weight that you know that your body's carrying. And that sort of resonated with me, and I thought, okay, so I need some mental clarity around this, and that's where that sort of things started to turn for me, you know. And then by the end of 2021, I had done some research and decided that I needed a coach, and so I called a fella by the name of David Graham from Edge 3 Coaching. And he had actually spoke to our group. He was the last person to speak to our group before COVID happened and shut everybody down. And so I reached out to him, and he's a master certified coach. And I said, Dave, I think I need to talk to you. And so we set up what turned out to be a coaching session. And by the end of that session, I kind of got off that session and decided that I really needed to delve into this coaching idea for a more mindful, just a more mindful way of showing up for myself and for my agents and for my partner and for my wife, right? Because like our relationship had sort of deteriorated a little bit. By the end of 2021, after watching me sit and waste away, you know, smoking pot every day, I think that really sort of started to suffer, right? And so So one conversation I had with her is one day I was sitting there with my wife Jo, and I said, I'm just curious, how would you characterize our relationship? And she goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, like if I say our relationship, what word pops to your mind? And she said, well, you know, we're kind of roommates. And I thought, oh, we're roommates. And I said, I was afraid of that. And so then we started to discuss that and how that actually made me feel inside. And
how was that?
Oh, it was awful, right? It was, you know, here's the love of my life. That I had an opportunity to meet this person, you know, and wasn't really looking for a relationship when I found her. And we had such amazing chemistry. We had, you know, we had so much going on between us that this all of this stuff, all of this weight that I was carrying, both mentally and physically, had brought us to that point where it really didn't matter if we were together or not, which it was heartbreaking, Sue. Like it was just no other way to describe it. It really just was heartbreaking. And
the last thing a man wants to hear.
Well, you know, and so the other thing that happened, I turned 50, you know, in that same period of time, and you know, all of the negative associations about turning 50, and then all of the fear about, well, I couldn't lose this weight when I was in my 30s. I couldn't lose this weight in my 40s, and now it's in my 50s, and I still have this shit that I have to deal with. All of this kind of concern and worry and the stuff that I'm carrying around, but now I'm 50, and I have to figure out how this works, you know, at 50. And then I started to do what I normally do, right? Go back to reduce calories and you know, try to follow a diet or try to follow this diet or that diet. And you know, I was on keto for a while until you know, eating fried onions sent me out of ketosis for a week, which it made me question my existence on the planet. And then the fact that I couldn't eat an apple on keto because, you know, an apple was going to hurt you, but you know, the whole mentality of an apple a day keeps the doctor away. All of that stuff.
But you need a pound of bacon and butter.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, you know, no, have more steak and have more bacon and put cheese on it, because you know, cheese is the thing that's gonna satisfy. All of that stuff, it just didn't make sense to me anymore, right? It was illogical, and
difficult to sustain.
And it was incredibly difficult to sustain. You know, because I had been on keto and I did fairly well. I lost 30 pounds and gained back 45. So life was, you know, life on keto was the same way life with everything else was. And that's why it was so incredible that, you know, you reached out to me that April, because I had started, right? It was sort of March that I had started to make some changes, and you know, I was down about 10 pounds and I thought things were going well, but then I started to doubt myself. I thought, well, this isn't sustainable, because this now is we're going to go out and we're going to have lunch and we're going to eat lunch out, and so now going out for dinner and going out for lunch is going to become a thing, because you know, now we're past COVID and this was 2022, and so I didn't feel like I had the tools that I needed in order to do this in a sustainable fashion. And then you handed me that yellow envelope. And the yellow envelope, when I looked at it and I started reading it, I'm like, holy crap, this is kind of common sense. This is kind of interesting. And so, you know, from that point till this, I think I've probably dropped, you know, I don't know, 65 more pounds, you know, so somewhere in that area, I think. And it turns out that it was really kind of the simplest thing I've ever done, because I never had to think about it anymore. Which, once you deal with things at the foundational level, which is the habits, and you know, we talk about keystone habits and stuff, which I'm sure we'll get into, then it's just a matter of building on those good habits and replacing the bad habits. And you know, everything else sort of changed, right? My mental acuity changed.
And you didn't have to do without any type
Never
of food.
went. That was the thing. That was the most important thing, because you know, in keto you can't eat an apple. Well, going through life without ever being able to eat an apple seems counterintuitive to me.
And
right?
hard.
And not to mention hard. You know, but you could white knuckle it, right? I was disciplined enough that, Like I had an enormous amount of self-discipline until I didn't, and then I had no self-discipline. So I was a discipline extremist, right? I could do it all, or I could do nothing.
All or nothing.
All
Yeah.
or nothing, right? Which is the story that I told myself, that in order for me to be not be fat, I had to do it all, and that's not true.